want to do something special at Fort Monroe, and we want to lead with an effort to launch, to financially launch the African Landing Memorial Project at Fort Monroe. And so with that, he put $500,000 in the budget. It survived through the course of the administration, through the course of the General Assembly, and we now have that money at our disposal. That has caused us to launch a partnership at Fort Monroe. We've launched this partnership first off with the Fort Monroe Foundation because we know we're going to need their help. This is going to be a lot more expensive than $500,000 if we leverage the opportunity that this is creating for us. We'll also immediately include the National Park Service. They need to be part of this. And of course, we included Project 1619 in this as well. Calvin Pearson and Bill Wiggins have been instrumental for so long, and they need to be part of this. We also, at the urging of the Chief of Staff, Clark Mercer, we reached out to the Virginia Commission on Arts. And you heard her name earlier today, Janet Starr, and she has some board members that are helping her, and they're part of our group as well. From the board perspective, Destry and Colin have been leaders on this as well. So we've put together quite a robust working group to move this forward. One of the first things that we did was we actually created, we sat down together and I led everybody in sort of a discussion, I wouldn't necessarily call it a design charrette, but a discussion on what public art is. And we showed some examples of some art that was in other cities. We showed we wanted to go to extremes. It didn't necessarily need to be something literal. It could also be something that was more artistic in nature. We also wanted to keep everybody focused that art does have a lot of different meanings. It could be even a garden area. So we were really trying to be very open-minded in our approach to this. We also looked at some projects that the state government has recently done. This is the Freedom Sculpture that has been commissioned for Browns Island in Richmond. And so we actually have been talking with Jennifer McClellan and others who were involved in this up in Richmond to get some of their advice from them. And then also too, there's a project that's under construction now. It's sort of in phases, but it's the Women's Monument that is being constructed in Richmond right now, and we have had conversations with them as well. So this is not unusual for state government to be involved in a project like this. They have certainly tasked the Fort Monroe Authority with being the lead on this and bringing in the other stakeholders. First thing we had to do was we had to define a site. And so you visited the site yesterday. This is a graphic representation on the in the field where you were standing. Again, reminding everybody that this is a circle that's about 40 to 50 feet in diameter. It is just outside of the view shed of the lighthouse, which you can see off to the left over there. This is an aerial view of where it is located. And again, I think this is a really exciting photograph to look as well, because as I tried to describe yesterday, we really see this as a catalyst for a much larger project. Again, so this is the site that we've asked our Historic Preservation Officer and the Department of Historic Resources to consider, and we've received preliminary review on that. It's interesting because just down here is the African landing marker, which is right over here. And this was an area that our master plan was actually designed to have a small plaza put around it. Our master plan for the waterfront park called for all of this parking to be redesigned across here. It also called for this parking lot over here to be redesigned. And now that we're involved in the 2019 commemorative planning, and we need more stage space and more visitor exhibit space than we have at Continental Park, we've actually have realized that this space right here has become a site that could be used as a ceremonial or event space. And so we see this monument right here, this memorial project, as being a catalyst to perhaps a much larger project that, first off, it definitely needs to be included and connected to the marker that's over here. It's an opportunity to improve parking along here, which we consider this parking to be very dangerous. It also provides an opportunity for to create a space here, and I think that's the discussion that we want to have. This is really more It's in our mind, it's not just the dropping of a bronze statue in the grass. It's actually a ceremonial space, a space where people can gather and so forth. So we are investigating it in that respect. And then of course I talked with you about the idea of expanding the whole project to include a boat walk, which goes all along behind these houses right here and connects and goes through the sally ports and creates this circular walk that would go all the way around this part of the fortress. So with that, I will tell you that our goal is to incorporate the artist selection process into the August 24th commemorative activities. We have a lot of work to do between now and then. We've actually created a statement of interest and have mailed it to nationally recognized artists. And we are working on gauging their level of interest and seeing what their response would be. But we understand that we've got to do a lot more in terms of public engagement than just that. So there's a whole public process that's got to be created to go along with this. But our preliminary goal would be to have something. Let me be less specific than this. Our preliminary goal is to have something to announce on August the 24th. And that's really where we're focused on. We really want this to be part of the August 24th commemorative activities. And we also see this is one of the things that we've talked about quite often, and that is, how do we go beyond August the 24th and 25th in Fort Monroe? How do we keep the momentum once we open up the Fort Monroe Visitor Education Center? I think a project like this creates a great opportunity for us to do that. So from, we approach these retreats with the board asking ourselves, the staff asking ourselves, what questions do we want the board to answer? And so there would be two questions that I would pose, and that would be, as we begin our discussions with artists, what are your ideas for this space in public art? And also, how do we see public art in general on the property? Because we need to be aware of the precedent-setting step that we're taking. If we do this, which we will, then what do we go back and say to the Tuskegee Airmen? What do we say to the Native American Indian tribes? There will be the Contraband Society. There will be lots of discussions and opportunities that take place after that. And so this is a great opportunity for the board to impart some vision, some of their vision and wisdom to us going forward. So Destry, I'll turn it over to you in terms of, that's how I teed it up.
And you did. You did a fine job covering almost all of it. I would say that we have sent this statement of interest and inquiry to a dozen sculptors who have experience in outdoor public art. They haven't had it long enough yet to have responded affirmatively. We don't know yet what we'll get in response to that. There has been some thought that if we don't get anything we like, or we don't get an adequate number of responses, that we may delay the ultimate decision longer, maybe incorporate some university art schools in this or in some other aspect of this, maybe posters or something, to make this, as Glenn said, more than a statue in the grass, but the African Arrival Memorial Park Site, which is Glenn's term for it, which I think is perfect. And if we can, and we get the responses we hope for, we would be ready to announce the winner at August 24th. If we're not quite there yet, we'll, as Glenn said, announce something else. Maybe that there are 3 finalists, and have, but if the schedule holds, we would have some public exposure of the finalists' conceptual design, to have a public meeting sometime in the late spring, early summer timeframe before we make a final selection. And we'll just, at this point, don't know what we're going to get in the way of responses to the request for statements of interest. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Question, are you running this as a design competition?
It ultimately is.
how are you going to, is it an open competition? I mean, some of these high-profile projects, you know, the ones that come to mind are 9/11 and the Vietnam Memorial, attract literally thousands of applications.
We made a decision early on to not run it through the state procurement process, to run it through the auspices of the foundation.
That really wasn't the question. It's more of a question how broadly
well,
we're inviting participation.
We had a working group of folks that included staff, historians on the staff, as well as people from the 1619 Society, and came up with, through searches and so forth, a substantial number of mostly African American sculptors who have done public art. And we sent them directly this solicitation. It did not go out to the general public at this point. In the end, that might prove to be a mistake, but that's what we chose to do. And we'll see what we get. We don't know what we're going to get. We may have to go. We may have to reverse course and go out to the general public, but that becomes a huge staff burden if we go in that direction. We're hopeful that we're going to get some of these people that have experience and prominence in this field to give us a 3 or 4 conceptual designs that we can evaluate. If that doesn't work, we'll rethink it.
Yeah, you got exactly what I was going to say, and that is that one of the things that the working group said was the working group made several decisions up front that I agree with Destry. We may have gone in the wrong direction, but we won't know until we go through the process we're going through right now. One of the things was they really wanted this to be a predominantly African American artist. That was a stated goal. So we really wanted to do that. Yeah, another stated goal was we wanted an artist who was very experienced in outdoor art, because we had a 50-year idea. This is going to be something that's going to be around for a very, very long period of time. The other idea that the working group said was they really wanted they wanted more of a, I'm probably not very good at describing this, despite my artistic background, a literal representation as opposed to something that was more ethereal, or they were really focused on something that had that in their mind had dignity and respect and was lifelike and character-like, and so that was another aspect of it. And then finally, they wanted to make sure that the artist was someone who was of some renown, because they really wanted to elevate this. So you can see every time we made one of those decisions, you know, we sort of got a narrower and narrower field. It got down to the point where we had about 18 to 20 artists that we were looking at. We narrowed it down to 10 or 12, and then we mailed them the statement of interest. There's a whole public engagement component of this, though, that's critical and that we're missing. And that's the part that concerns me. And so one thought was, if this was successful and we were able to identify 3 artists that we ended up interviewing, I would suggest that one of the criteria for the final selection would be, what is their experience in public engagement, and what would be their recommended process for public engagement. This could be an amazing opportunity for student artists at Hampton University, Norfolk State, other colleges, to work with a nationally recognized artist. So that's a benefit to the process that we're in right now. As to whether or not it's going to be successful, I still think we're 15 to 30 days out from being able to answer that question.
I would just add, my visual, conceptual, comparative model for this, if you've seen it, is the Japanese American Memorial in Washington on Capitol Hill, which is a central sculpture of a crane wrapped in barbed wire, with a central water feature and the names of the 10 internment camps carved, and dates and numbers of occupants during that World War II internment. It's moving, it's beautiful, it's well situated, it's landscaped, and it draws a lot of attention. And I think this will as well. And we will have opportunities. You know, I think we're in one sense, we're setting a precedent with public art designed for Fort Monroe, and that's a good thing. It could lead to